Hello from St. Louis. I am Nathan Baird from the Indy Star.
Sam King from the Journal and Courier. We're in the Enterprise Center where today 8 teams practice, 8 teams had press conferences, 8 teams had open locker rooms, and tomorrow Purdue will have a long wait before playing Queens in the first round at 7:35 Eastern time.
Not that long. It's just normal game time. This is a normal tip-off time. That's not a long wait. Long wait is when you get one of these. We had a 10 o'clock tip-off in Hartford a couple years ago. That was a long wait. This is just Big Ten basketball. But yeah, 2 seed Purdue, 15 seed Queens, Friday's first round of the West region. This was our first chance to talk to Purdue since it had learned much about Queens. It knew who they were playing the last time we talked to them after their Big Ten tournament championship game victory Sunday in Chicago, but they've obviously spent the week getting to know this team better. And I think probably the first thing that anything is going to come out of any of these players or coaches' mouths is that this is a team that can score a lot of points.
Yeah, 3-point shooting team, which is obviously something that Purdue struggled with during the regular season, guarding teams from the perimeter. And, this team can light it up from 3 at times. I think as a team, it's shooting 36% over the course of the season, and a lot of guys that chuck them up. So it will be an offense that stretches Purdue out and makes you guard, around the arc, and that opens up several different things. And if you're Purdue, you're going to have to keep them from getting hot early. But I think that Purdue offensively can probably match anything it's going to be up against.
Yes, we'll come back. We'll go a little bit more in depth about what this team is about in a second. We just want to hit on a couple of pieces of news. The first guy that I walked to when we walked in the locker room,
first guy everybody walked to, I think.
Yes, was Trey Coffin-Renn. First time we've gotten the chance to see him since he was doubled over at the scorer's table. That's not true. We did see him celebrating with the team after the game, and that involved raising the left arm up, as we noted, to hold up the tassel of the net. But we want to ask him, hey, what's going on with the shoulder? He got hurt in that play about minute 40 left against Michigan. Came out of the game, didn't go in. He said everything's fine. He said it was sort of, I asked, it wasn't a dislocation. He was kind of talking about something kind of coming out. He said, what did he say? He's I'm very flexible, or something like that. My body's very flexible. But said it was like a hyperextension. He's like, yeah, something like that. But he said it was perfectly fine. The same thing happened against Northwestern. It was perfectly fine the next day. Sounds like the same thing here. He was out here. It as much as they are practicing, they call it an open practice. It's really more like an open shoot around, because they go somewhere else and practice under the secrecy. But still, a sigh of relief for any Purdue fans who saw that, I think, on Sunday.
And for him to say that is one thing. I was watching him specifically go through the shoot around. There was a point where he went up and dunked it with 2 hands and then hung on the rim with his left arm for an extended period of time. And I was like, okay, he's fine. So, yeah, I would not be too worried that that's a lingering effect from last Sunday's game. But, it was a scary situation. Sounds like it's kind of cleared up now, because Purdue might be able to beat Queens without him, but you're not going to make the run you're capable of if he's not in the lineup.
Yeah, and I asked him, I was asking some other players too, hey, did that win and getting the extra day help you guys? You just played 4 games in 4 days. It would have been a tough turnaround to then play today, which means they would have all had to leave Tuesday to be at their site yesterday to be playing first-round games today. Did that help you guys? And Trey Coffin-Renn was kind of I know. I mean, as a competitor, the adrenaline kicks in, we would have been fine. Omer Meyer said something similar that, well, if you go ask an expert, they'll probably tell you it's a good thing, but we just want to play. I did ask Jack Benter, because obviously he's been dealing with this hand injury since whatever it was, March 1st, whenever they played Ohio State, and he hurt it. And he said today that it still is sore. It still hurts him. But yes, that it probably did help a little bit to get that extra rest. But also, in the same breath, was very much. But it also gave us an extra day to prepare for Queens. So I think that was what he was even more excited about, because the hand's just going to hurt, and it obviously hasn't stopped him from helping this team, including in important weights when you had to come in for Coffin Wren there at the end of the game. So just you get to the end of this season, whether I cover Purdue basketball, whether I cover Ohio State football, whatever I cover, whatever team you're covering, there's probably some kind of injury storyline when you show up for the first game of the playoff. It just every year, it just always is. And for Purdue this year, it's compared to, I guess it's it isn't always the first game. Something emerges. So compared to Isaac Haas, compared to some of the other things they've gone through in the past
last year,
yeah. So compared to that was long before the tournament. Yeah, I mean, but compared to everything that they've gone through in the past, relatively minor situation this year.
Yeah, and Purdue's had, knock on wood, I'm sure somebody's going to get mad at me for saying this, but Purdue's had some pretty good luck on the injury front in recent years. But there was a long stretch before that, and I think Matt Painter was talking about it 2 years ago during that run. Is like, listen, we used up all of our bad will to get to this point where they had the luxury of having the same lineup every single game for a 39-game season. So, that's out of the way. That's good news. Other news, I guess, Braden Smith is going to be wearing number 3. Not that there was a lot of doubt there, but he was wearing 41 the last time we saw him.
He was, yes. But the important thing to remember is Purdue will be wearing home jerseys. That was a road jersey that he tore. And, yes, I know he had a good second half against Michigan and really led them and was the tournament MVP. Finished that off wearing the number 41. However, they would have had to, make a new 41 home and road and all the different versions of it for him to start wearing it in the tournament. And they're going to be wearing home jerseys on Friday. They will, in theory, they could win a national championship and only win home jerseys because whoever the low seed is, the better seed wears the home jerseys. So the earliest that they would be wearing the black jerseys would be the Elite 8 if they had to play Arizona, the number 1 seed in this region. I know that Braden Smith went to a press conference today and said, I'm just going to wear that jersey again. They just sewed it up right after that happened. And a team spokesperson told me, no, that's not how this works. They're not going to put him out on the floor with some kind of ghetto Frankenstein uniform jersey. He will be wearing a new jersey if Purdue needs its black road jersey before the end of this tournament.
As far as I know, Purdue does not have a team seamstress. So I would be eager to find out if that was the case, who would even be tasked with sewing that jersey back together.
That's a great question. That is a great question. I don't want to have that job. Let's talk about this game though, because it is interesting that he'll be in the normal number, I guess. Because what was weird was if he had broken the assist record, then forever all of the photos and videos and everything of that moment would have been in him in a number 41 jersey, and that would have been a little weird. Now he's going to get to break it in his customary number 3.
I said something the other day when the AP All-American team, second team came out and they put a graphic with him in a 41 jersey, and I was like, oh, come on, you just found the most recent photo of him and put it in there. And then somebody said, well, number 41, Braden Smith's the first team All-American. Coming out a couple days later, he is a first team All-American on a couple other, USBWA, NABC. The coach for Queens said he voted him first team All-American on the NABC ballots. So a lot of respect. Basically, he's a really good player, whether he's wearing number 3 or he's wearing number 41. He will be the best player on the court when Queens takes the floor against Purdue tomorrow.
So I don't know if anybody's been at an NCAA tournament in the arena before. I mean, I know people have. Anybody's watching it.
Somebody has.
Although a lot of you probably have for these last recent runs for Purdue. But when you are the low seed or the better seed, you're in these neutral arenas, and especially when Purdue went and played in Denver or places like that, the crowd sometimes gets behind the underdog. And Queens is, I think, a team that is going to have a lot of that random fan support. They've got the dog, the stuffed dog. I don't know if it's a ceramic dog. Ceramic dog.
It's actually the second one because they broke the original ceramic dog.
It's not a taxidermy. It's a ceramic dog named Buddy, who they bring around with them. And they were asked about that today. They said it's really not just a mascot. It's really more of an identity. They kind of try to they give it to whatever player that day.
What player had the dog in him that day?
Yeah.
Or gets to take it home until the next game.
Yeah. You've got a coach who is like very, what do I want to say, colorful. Wears colorful sweaters.
Yeah, he's a pretty charismatic guy, and
Yeah.
I even said to you, I was like, man, he's a pretty likable guy. If you're a Purdue fan, you're not going to like him tomorrow, but I think he's somebody easy to root for. He's a Midwest guy. He's from Wisconsin, I think. So he knows a lot. He knows a lot about Purdue basketball. He talked glowingly about Purdue, which every team does about the team that they're about to face. But no, it sounded like he really has a high respect for what Matt Painter has done at Purdue.
Grant Leonard is his name. I forgot to mention that up front.
Yeah, probably should mention him.
So that'll be all the talking, and I imagine if this team can come out and hit shots and give Purdue a game, that it's going to get some of that crowd support. That is what Queens does. They, as you said before, they're shooting 36% from three, and that's a good percentage. But especially on the vault, they shoot. I think it's an average of 28 a game. I think they attempted something like 38 in the ASUN tournament championship game. 19 of those came from one dude. They are a team that is going to put the ball in the air a lot, but they also will attack the basket with some guys and work off of that. Nasir Mann, the point guard, who I was impressed with him in the interview session. Like, you don't know these guys until they're just kind of thrust in front of you, but seemed like a smart guy and a mature guy. And that's going to be the guy who's leading the offense. And his ability to get to the basket sometimes opens up things for some of these other guys. One of the things that jumped out to me on paper, though, was they've got a 6'9" forward named Carson Schweiger. I think he shoots about 42% from three. They've got a guy coming off the bench. Let me make sure I get his name right. Great podcasting here. It's on my video if you watch my video. Mabon Jabril. And it was a slightly uncommon name, so I want to get it right. Mabon Jabril. He comes off the bench. He's also 6'9", and he shoots like 48% from three. Like, these guys have a lot of guys who can shoot it, and some of those guys are guys with height. And if you're going to pick like the one Achilles heel, now none of them are like 6'10", 6'11", like you're going to get rank masked and some of the guys that Purdue has faced this season. But there's enough combination of height and just the number of shooters they have that it's the one thing that I think that Purdue, even though they answered it somewhat in Chicago, you're going to, like, the one Achilles heel to this defense, the biggest, the most lethal one, has been tall guys who can shoot. And Queens has a few of those.
Yeah. What you would probably expect to happen is the communication errors that have been really a 2-year problem seem to have been shored up over 4 games, basically 7 halves in Chicago. The second half against Northwestern, I talked to Paul Less today, and he said that was bad, but the other, the rest of the 4 games that they played, he was very pleased with. And I said, what changed? He said, we didn't do anything different. We didn't teach anything different. They just communicated better. It was like, okay, listen, like, now it's backs against the wall. You've got to figure this out. And then I asked Trey Kaufman-Renn about that later, and he said, yeah, we don't just want to be this great offensive team. We know we have to play good defense to win in this tournament. And I think for some of the players on this team, they realize the possibility if they play well, and knowing the way that Purdue was playing defense for 2 months there at the end of the year, that wasn't going to cut it. So it really just became a matter of, like, the guys getting in tune with each other. And now it's a matter of, did that carry over from 4 games in Chicago to St. Louis against a team that, they're familiar with the 4 teams they played in Chicago. They've played them a bunch over the years. They've never seen this team. They've never seen this coach. They've never seen any of these players before. So it will definitely be a different challenge, even though, with the talent discrepancy, you would think it's not going to be a game, but we've seen this before. We saw earlier today with Wisconsin, who was playing as well as anybody going into the NCAA tournament, and that lost a 12-5 matchup to High Point.
Yeah, I really think that senior day game had to have been a little bit of a wake-up call, more than a little one. And I know that they'd lost other games at home previous this season, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State. But this is a team you've already beaten. It's a team that's missing one of its key players. You score 93 points at home on senior day and you lose. And I think that had to be maybe the straw that broke the camel's back for just how serious they had to take this and fix it. And there have been some constants through the season. Fletcher Lawyer has been a very vocal part of getting into this team and trying to work on that communication. We see Braden Smith doing that. I think those are the two kind of vocal defensive leaders. Then they also have to go out and do it on the court themselves too, though. And I do think you saw just better communication, better connectivity. I do think it went even beyond that, though. It isn't just a matter of not getting caught in those like overhelps and things like that were leaving guys open. It was also keeping guys in front of you to stop the penetration that would open up those dish outs, because that's where those rotations sometimes would catch them. It was also rebounding better than they did the first time they played Michigan, because in the Michigan game and the Illinois game, there have been some other instances of this year. It's those long tip outs, those long weird rebounds sometimes that come off of three-pointers that teams are getting offensive rebounds on and then getting second chance three-pointers. I think Michigan did well on second chance points against Purdue, but only one of those was a three-pointer early in the game that came off of an offensive rebound. The rest of the time, Purdue cut off that avenue. And a lot of the things that, man, I can't even begin to tell you how big of a difference there is between Michigan and Queens on paper. But in some ways, the lessons learned and the lessons that they actually followed through on in Chicago last week need to carry over to this matchup.
Yeah. By the way, Michigan is leading by 4 at halftime as we record this over a 16 seed. So that's a high-scoring game. But yeah, I think
it's going around. Like it wasn't that long ago that we thought, man, is the 16 ever going to be to 1? And now it's just like Siena gave Duke a game today. Like it's all over the place. I'm not telling Purdue fans, I guess, anything they don't know.
Yeah, but like you said, the carryover has to happen, and not just this first game. It's got to, I think this bracket on paper sets up well for Purdue to make a deep run until that Elite Eight, but it's still random in a one-and-done tournament that you never know, which is why, the added emphasis on just playing well. And if Purdue plays the way it did last week, I don't know that it matters who it's playing this weekend in St. Louis. I think that this team would take care of business. But you can't revert back to what you were 2 weeks ago or what you were with a 13-game stretch from like late January till the start of the Big Ten tournament.
Now, yes, they have to be worried about Queens and its shooters and all of its scores. Having said that, Queens gives up a lot of points. Queens is we were in the interview room or in the work room, and I showed you KenPom, and I sorted it by adjusted defensive efficiency, and I just started scrolling down because all the NCAA teams show up in pink against the other ones that are gray or whatever, and you start scrolling down, and after a while they start to get a lot more spaced out, and you keep going farther and farther and farther, and you get to what you think is the last one, and then like 60 spots below that is where Queens is. They are, on paper, the worst defensive team in this tournament. And I think what you saw from Purdue that was maybe the most encouraging thing offensively of that run in Chicago was they didn't shoot the ball well. That's an encouraging thing defensively too, because there's too many times where this team's defensive acumen is tied into its offensive esteem about itself. They got away from that, and the fact that so much of what they did offensively was Braden Smith, Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman-Renn, just like that trifecta working together and just chewing up teams. And that was teams such as Nebraska, and that was teams such as Michigan. Like, it kind of ran the gamut of the different kind of defenses they were facing, and it was effective against all of those teams.
Yeah, and what I think what's promising, like you said, that the shots weren't falling, but they still played well. Matt Painter said numerous times, I know this, we're a better defensive team when we're making shots. And that's the case with anybody, because you get to go back and set your defense. But that was kind of a promising thing where over the course of those 4 games, sometimes the offense wasn't working. It definitely wasn't working early against Michigan, and still was kind of like right in that game, and managed to stay within striking distance to where you come out in the second half and you hit the kill shot or whatever and put them behind the 8 ball. But I just think that when you think about what Purdue did last week, in some ways, does that even matter anymore? Because now there's so many different variables where you're learning teams on the fly, especially if you get through this first game. You have a day to learn Missouri or Miami that I'm sure somebody's maybe working ahead, but that's not the focal point for the players or for the head coach or anything. That's some.
There we go. I'm just trying to catch a vibe around this team today. I think it was pretty relaxed, pretty confident, pretty businesslike. Maybe that's to be expected of a team that has been through so much. But I think it should also be expected of a team that has had the regular season it had this year and knows how fleeting success is on a minute by minute basis. Like they've got to be locked in. And I think that came through last season. By the time they got the last season, and really last regular season and this regular season, pretty similar in a lot of ways. And maybe that will prepare them mentally in a different way to be like, as we said, just kind of locked into the job here. It is interesting. Queens was asked in its press conference, the guys that they brought in, the players they brought in, a couple of them, hey, like, are you aware of Purdue's history of losing in the first round? And the point guard who I mentioned before, Nasir Mann, said, yeah, like it actually kind of gives us a little confidence to know that this is a program that has been prone to that in the past. Now, he said, now they're a different team and we're a different team, but some of these guys weren't a different team. Like some of these guys were around for that. So it's interesting how that specter, it's one thing that it follows Matt Painter still to this day to some extent, even though you've been to a national championship game, just because of the degree of some of the upsets that you were handed. It is interesting that this team is still, and we don't really talk about it to them that much anymore because it's 3 years removed, but just around the game, maybe that specter still follows them a little bit. And it's always something that these guys have had to show up now 3 more years and prove.
Yeah. And kind of going off that, I asked Matt Painter after the championship game on Sunday, is there kind of the right mix of guys who have been through this before, losing to a 16 seed, but also being in the national championship game, and guys who are going through this for the first or second time? TJ Cox, Jakari Harris went through it for the first time last year. Now Omer Meyer is going through it for the first time. Oscar Clough hasn't been in an NCAA tournament in 4 years or 3 years or something like that. Jack Benter didn't play in it last year. Obviously, Daniel Jacobson didn't play in it last year. But you also have these seasoned guys. And he said, yeah, there is kind of the right balance of the guys who know the business approach, but also those young, hungry guys who are like, I'm eager to go out there and be a part of the NCAA tournament, which you grow up watching, not in Clough's case or Meyer's case, I guess. It was more of what you saw on social media. But Jack Benter, for example, said, yeah, I remember growing up watching it and couldn't wait until I played in March Madness. And there's kind of a mix of nerves and excitement to get out there. But that's where having the older guys who, there's probably always going to be the butterflies, I guess, when you get to this point. But those guys know how to, I guess, manage that throughout the course of a high-stakes game.
We're going to wrap up here because Brian Newbert is back in the workroom getting hangry, waiting for us to wrap up our day. But just a quick recap of what we have right now, indystar.com/sports/Boilermakers, jconline.com/Boilermakers. And you can follow us on our various Twitters and other social medias. But I got a little piece up there about Trey Coughlin talking about the shoulder, Trey Coughlin-Wren talking about the shoulder, and a little bit about the jersey. And Sam, you've got a couple posts up already, I believe.
I talked to Paul Lusk, who I mentioned earlier. Actually, when he was at Iowa as a freshman, they played Duke in the NCAA tournament. I think Duke won the national title that year, but he saw Bobby Hurley firsthand. A few years later, he's transferred to Southern Illinois. They played Duke again in the NCAA tournament in what is ultimately Bobby Hurley's next to last game. And he just kind of compared, coaching Braden Smith, seeing Braden Smith with Bobby Hurley, the two guys that are going to be 1-2, are currently 1 and 2 in the career assist list, and it will most likely flip-flop tomorrow with who's first and who's second. Just some other things, some stuff on the guys that are going through this for the first time. I think you did a great story the other day on Braden Smith and kind of the ascent towards this record and how important it is that he's as close as he is going into this tournament. I wrote something up on Trey Kaufman-Wren, kind of recapping his journey through 5 years and having a different role every year. Basically, there is a ton of content out there. Our colleague Zach Osterman was here, getting some video and some stuff, and he did some good work as well. So
Greg Doyle, I know, kind of went deep on Queens and like what they're about and why they're a fun team to follow in this tournament, and how Purdue's got to try to quell the uprising here a little bit from them. So just a lot of stuff there, and we're going to keep pumping it out all weekend, and as long as Purdue keeps playing, obviously. So thanks for joining us. We will be back with you post game after Friday night's game. Thanks for joining us.